Hey guys, welcome back to Covenant Canon. So, the 7th episode of the Halo TV series has released, titled Thermopylae. And honestly, this episode really felt more like Halo than the entire Halo show put together thus far. It had a lot going on with it, including both human, Forerunner, and Covenant. Though the latter didn't really have that many scenes as I would have liked, that isn't to say that it was bad at all, especially for the Forerunner side, but I'll talk about that in good course. The characters themselves actually feel more akin to their core canon counterparts, and it really sets up the excitement that's going to happen in the final episode. But for the sake of this channel, let's move on to all the Covenant stuff from this episode. Now, before I begin, I just want to let you guys know that this video will contain a heavy amount of spoilers. If you don't want to be spoiled of the episode at all, I definitely recommend skipping to the near end of the video for my non-spoiler review. For everyone else though, let's begin. This is episode 7, Thermopylae. The episode picks up almost immediately after the events of Onyx, where Chief and McKee touch their respective keystones and have a vision of Halo. There, McKee tries to reason with John once again to join her. John confronts her about the events of Reach, and he discovers that she now knows the location of Halo. He tries reasoning with her not to reveal this location to the Covenant, but McKee is adamant that the Covenant and humans can cooperate and build a new world on this ring. John knows all too well that the Covenant will not allow any peace and that they will use the Halo to wipe out humanity. McKee counters that they can't control the Halo ring because it doesn't belong to them, but to the Blessed Ones, aka the humans the Forerunners granted their abilities to control Forerunner technology. Before they can continue their conversation, Chief and McKee are ambushed by their respective groups. John with Oni, and McKee, Utomdama's loyalist. When McKee wakes up from her trance, she's brought back to the Covenant mutiny going on Var Getanai's ship, where Sangheili is going against Sangheili. And when Utomdama kills a fellow Sangheili, he notices McKee and charges at her. McKee then grabs Cortana's data chip and runs away. The priest corners her in the Arbiter's own chambers when Cortana appears, distracting Umdama. Then all of a sudden, McKee draws on her own energy sword and impales Umdama, killing him instantly. Now, McKee had an energy nail in season 1. Now she has a human-sized energy sword. I'm sorry, who is making all these weapons for humans in the Covenant? I'm not entirely sure. I can only assume that Var Getanai had that sword personally made for McKee. As McKee stands over Umdama's corpse, she reveals to Cortana the location of Halo. And that begins the episode. Now, let's move our attention to the Oni base on Onyx, where they picked up the Arbiter's ship, where one of the Oni operatives identifies the Arbiter's ship as a battlecruiser. But the hologram shows an SDV class heavy corvette, not a battlecruiser. But 10 seconds later, they show another fleet in pursuit of the Arbiter's ship. And this fleet is none other than the first fleet of Solemn Accord. Finally, we get to see the fleet that Var Getanai was in command of before becoming the Arbiter. And this fleet is massive. It has 1 assault carrier, 60 corvettes, and 10 battlecruisers. Actual battlecruisers, I would like to add. And they're all in the Soel system. Now, for those unaware, this is the system where Alpha Halo was in Halo CE and where the Covenant fleet arrived in Halo 2. If I were to venture a guess, I would assume that the Halo that everyone seems to be converging to is Alpha Halo, or rather, its Silver Timeline equivalent. Now let's move on to the final Covenant scene in this episode, in the aftermath of Utomdama's mutiny. Var Getanai reports to McKee, that the last of Utom Dama's loyalists have been purged. The Arbiter further questions Maki on whether or not she has communed with the artifact. The Blessed One reveals that in the aftermath of the mutiny, she can't commune with the artifact anymore, that she herself has fallen. But Getanai doesn't seem to care that much. To his eyes, Maki has already revealed to him the path to redemption, and that he'll stay loyal to her no matter what. His proclamation moved Maki so much that he took the Mark of Shame brand and used it on herself. And here we get a clear-cut look of the Mark of Shame. I only surmised that it was the mark in episode 6, but I love that it's confirmed in this episode. By brandishing on herself the Mark of Shame, the Arbiter and Maki both proclaim that they are bound in their sacred duty to begin the Great Journey. The last we see of Maki is in the final minutes of the episode, where she and the Arbiter are fleeing from the wrath of the First Fleet of Solemn Accord, right to Alpha Halo. Let me just pause here and say that I am so glad that the First Fleet of Solemn Accord is pretty much being the Fleet of Swift Justice from Oblivion. That they're here not for the ring or to help out the Arbiter, but rather to pursue and hunt him down. I said this before, and I'm gonna say it again. I love the parallels that Var Getanai is having with both Thel 'Vadam, Ripa Mormi, and now Nizak Kevarosi. Honestly, I really don't want to see him die in the next episode. I really want to see him progress throughout the entire show. He is by far my favorite character in this season. And honestly, the entire show really. But with that closes off the Covenant sections of this episode. As I said in the beginning, there wasn't really much Covenant scenes going on with this episode, but many and more on the Forerunner side. Let's rewind a bit and move on to Catherine Halsey and Miranda. At their dig site, Halsey and Miranda are deciphering the Forerunner structures, debating on what the door unlocks. Now, as mother and daughter debate, Kwanha uses her Blessed One abilities, I guess, and manages how to unlock the door. And within it, we see a Forerunner structure and a hardlight bridge. As Quan, Halsey, and Miranda approach the door, we see two symbols on it. One, a guardian symbol, and above it, a flood symbol. Now, this can only confirm that the laboratory that they enter is a flood containment facility, or something regarding the flood. And just to make matters even cooler, they find a mummified remains of a Forerunner. Honestly, when I saw this, I was in complete disbelief. I didn't think they were gonna touch on the Forerunners at all in this season, but this. And Halsey deduces that this Forerunner is a scientist. Now, for those Forerunner nerds out there, the equivalent to a scientist for the Forerunners is a life worker. And apparently, it's a she. But just before they could study further, the facility enters a weird security phase and pretty much collapses. As they retreat, Halsey notices that there is an entire Forerunner city underneath the ground of Onyx. And this city just looked absolutely beautiful. It looks almost entirely similar to what we saw in Halo 4's terminals. And with this Forerunner city, it pretty much confirms that Onyx is still a shield world. Now, moving back to the scene itself, Halsey is in utter disbelief, enough so that she doesn't even notice the hardlight bridge deteriorating around her. Miranda knocks her out of it, and they manage to escape. But not before Miranda reveals that she grabbed whatever that Forerunner was carrying. Later in the episode, we see Miranda and Halsey studying this artifact. Now, they don't really discover just what it is, but Miranda eventually manages to unlock the artifact, but that's the extent of it, really. While it's not a Covenant scene, this really blew my mind away, really. It was just amazing to see the Forerunner side explored more in this episode than we had the entire Halo show itself. I'm not a Forerunner fan, but I love how they explored the Forerunners in this episode, and their slight tease to the Flood if and when we get a Season 3. And they made Master Chief more like Master Chief in this episode. He actually felt more like John 117. And I think I could speak for everyone when I say it's very glad that he finally got his armor back. But with that, I'm going to give Thermopylae a 7.5 out of 10. It was very enjoyable, very interesting to see the Forerunner side, and like I said, this episode has felt more like Halo than the first and 2 seasons put together thus far. Now, before I close off, I just want to talk a little bit about the preview for episode 8. It seems that Master Chief is going to veer off from his initial course to the Halo Ring to help out Kai and the Spartan 3s combat Vargetinai on board his ship. There isn't really much to talk about, but I'm glad to see that Master Chief finally has an energy sword and is cutting his way throughout the Covenant ship. Hopefully we'll see a one-on-one battle between Getinai and Chief. Though, like I said earlier, I really hope that Chief doesn't kill Getinai. I really want to see him moving on further in this show. But what do you guys think? Did you enjoy this episode? What are you looking forward to seeing in the season finale? Let me know in the comments below. And until next time, guys, may the light of the rings guide your path. Victory to clan and kin, Covenant fans. Covenant Canon, out.